I've been able to buy over $50 million worth of rental properties using other people's money. I tried a million different things and I boiled all that experience over the past 11 years of buying real estate to 3 simple steps that anyone can repeat. So in this video, I'm going to go over the 3 steps to buying rental properties using other people's money based on my experiences buying over $50 million worth of real estate, coming from the middle class, not inheriting money, not inheriting real estate, and I've created financial freedom coming just from a normal middle class household. So let's get the ball rolling. Set this over here. Let's go over the 3 simple steps that anyone can repeat to buy real estate, to buy rental properties using other people's money. You can do this with apartment complexes. You can do this with self-storage facilities. You can do this with single family rentals. You can do this with duplexes. You can do this with quadplexes. You can do this with hotels. The reason I know all that because I have done all of those asset classes with this simple yet powerful 3-step process. If you're ready to learn how to buy real estate on other people's dime, hit that like button and let's go. All right, I'm gonna go over the 3 steps now, then of course I'm gonna break them down, and I apologize in advance. My writing is not really the best. I'll explain what I'm writing down. Hopefully you can read it, but the legibility is not one of my strengths. Maybe I should have became a doctor, who knows? All right, so step 1 is finding a distressed property. You need the asset to be able to buy using other people's money. Step 2 is to find the funding. You find the property, you find the funding, and then step 3 is to use the FasterFreedom framework. So let's break down each step in detail, then we'll tie it all together at the end. And I even got some free resources I'm gonna send you. All right, so step 1 is find a distressed property, okay? Now, the key here is you have to find a property that you can buy below market value. And in today's real estate market, and honestly probably for the rest of our lives in the real estate market, you're not going to be able to find properties that are good for real estate investing that are on the open market. You're going to have to find properties that you can buy at a discount, and the only way that you can do that is to find a distressed property. So that's the reason we're buying distressed properties, not because it's cool and it's fun. It can be both of those things, but the reason we're finding distressed properties is so we're able to buy at a discount to create equity for the next few steps. So the whole goal here is to find a property that you can buy at a discount. Now the property is either distressed, so we're either gonna have some, they didn't even spell that right, we're either gonna have distressed with the property, or we're gonna have distress with the owner of the property. It's usually a combination of the two. The property's distressed, but the seller inherited it from a parent that passed away, or the seller's getting foreclosed on, or they have to move, or the house isn't in any condition because it's outdated and not well taken care of to sell on the open market. So there's usually an issue with the seller that ends up leading to an issue with the house. That's where we attack and that's where we go find. So we want to find distressed properties. We have to find the sources of those distressed properties. There are 2 main lead sources to find distressed properties. There are paid lead sources and free lead sources. Let's go over a couple of each. Let's talk about some paid lead sources right now, okay? Paid, let's just write paid. The more I write, the worse it gets. So we're just gonna write paid lead sources. There are over 30 that I can think of on the top of my head. I'm not gonna go over all 30 of them now. Let me just introduce you to a couple low budget ways to pay money to get some lead sources coming across your way for distressed properties, so we can move on to step 2. The first way that a lot of people use that I think is the most tried and true way is direct mail. I did great until that I. Direct mail. Now the pros of direct mail is you're able to utilize technology and you're able to find properties that have a good chance of selling at some point in the future. You can use our technology called Deal Pilot, or there's other great ones out there, to where you're taking a zip code or taking a county and you're saying I want properties in this price range. So you can literally with software find a direct mail campaign and create a direct mail campaign for properties that have an ARV of 200 to 400K, that have an absentee owner, meaning it's probably a rental property, absentee, that there's probably a rental property that's an absentee, they don't live there, so that's a good thing. You can get a property that's getting into pre-foreclosure, so meaning there's an issue obviously with payment, and that maybe has a lien on it. So there's a ton of other things you can filter, but the point is you can get really dialed in. And if you take a county and you scrub these types of, flags for mailing direct mail, you'll take a county of, 200,000 houses and you'll get it down to 2,000 houses. And sending 2,000 pieces of direct mail is not outrageous to the pocketbook. It's usually going to be anywhere between 50 cents to $1 to send direct mail. Pick a good list and mail it 6 months in a row and you will get leads, but you have to be willing to commit the money. So this one is probably the most costly of the lead sources I'm going to go over, but it's a great paid lead source to get things coming in the door relatively quickly. All right, let's get on to the second paid lead source I want to talk about, and this one is driving for dollars. Drive for dollars is driving around looking for distressed properties that have, the boarded up windows, grass up to here, not just tall grass hasn't been cut in a couple weeks, grass has been cut in months, mail coming out of the mailbox, whatever the property that's distressed and not well taken care of or not lived in has a much higher likelihood of selling to an investor than a perfect house that somebody's living in and making their mortgage payment, right? So this is driving around looking for those distressed properties. It's the deeper level to direct mail. Because direct mail, you're not going to see all the house. So you're not going to know. You may be mailing a house that looks like it has issues but is in perfect condition and they're going to list on the MLS. If you're able to find these properties by driving, you drive around, again, use software. We have Deal Pilot software. There's other great driving for dollar softwares out there. Can't tell, use technology to be efficient, right? That's why it's there. But you can use technology to drive around and track where you're going, kind of like on Google Maps, and you see a property that meets this distress standard, tall grass, you can tell that it hasn't been lived in or was very, very, poorly taken care of. And you can get that address through the app and you can put them in a list to send them direct mail. And you know that that house is very likely to sell to an investor at some point in the near future if it looks like that. Or you can get their email address, or you can get on the phone and call them. So Drive for Dollars is a great way to take advantage of putting in the work and driving around, or you can pay someone else to drive for dollars for you. That's a great, pretty inexpensive way to do it. And lastly, before I get into the free resources and then we get on to step 2, another great way that not everybody talks about is bandit signs, all right? So bandit signs are those little 2-foot by 3-foot signs that you see on the side of the road that say, "We buy houses," usually written like that, and then there's a phone number at the bottom. They're usually yellow or white, but those work. I had a painting business. I don't have my bandit sign in here. I had a painting business in college called Budget Painting. We got 5 years, 5 summers of work nonstop by putting out little signs that say Budget Painting and free estimate. So people drive by or stop and they see those signs and they either need to sell their house or maybe know somebody that does. So you put these signs out. I wouldn't put your personal phone number on them. I'd put a Google number on them, and understand certain municipalities allow you to put them out on weekends. Certain municipalities don't allow them at all. So you might have to take a little bit of a risk legally. Don't put any personal information on there. If you do, if the cops call or if something happens, you just do a little bit of research, but I don't know anybody that really cares about that. You can get a couple hundred signs for a couple $100, go put them out over a couple different weekends, and you will start to get phone calls. Now you're going to have to talk to sellers directly and give quotes directly if this is newer to you, or not quotes, but give, offers. If this is newer to you, then it might be a little bit harder, but it's definitely a way. There's a ton of other ways, but those are the top 3 paid ways that I would go about finding some deals. All right, let's talk about some free lead sources now. The number 1 A, B, and C lead source to find distressed properties that's free is wholesalers. Wholesalers do everything that I just mentioned. They find the properties, they do direct mail, they do TV, they do radio, they do cold calling, they do texting, they drive for dollars, they knock on doors, they do all the hard work to find the deal. They take pictures and videos and get it under contract, and then they try to sell it to you as a real estate investor. Now we're gonna have to get to step 2. They're not gonna go to you unless you have money. We'll get there, but wholesalers are the best place to go. We buy 60 houses a year from wholesalers minimum. You can find wholesalers by going to your local meetups, your local Facebook groups. You can find wholesalers by just asking other investors who they use. These bandit signs you see on the side of the road, if you're not going to put them out, a wholesaler did. Call that number or text that number and get on their buyers list. So wholesalers are a great way to get free leads. My second favorite, and sometimes my first favorite, is real estate agents. Real estate agents are the front lines of the real estate industry. They're in and out of houses all day, every day. A vast majority of the houses that normal real estate agents deal with are not for you or me. As investors, they're retail. They're going to go on the market. They're not going to sell at a discount to an investor. We're looking for the agents that understand investing. You're going to find them at meetups and Facebook groups. Again, utilize technology a little bit and find the agents that are already out there. You probably know some agents. They may or may not understand what a good investment deal is. You're just going to have to teach them that. teach them that the handyman, the fixer-uppers, the houses that won't pass occupancy or won't pass code, those are the ones that you want. You can give their client a fair cash offer. They can get paid as a buying agent and a selling agent because you don't need to get paid on this. You're just looking for the house. And then their seller has an option to get out of the house quicker. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to network. I tell you, if you get 5 agents and 5 wholesalers over the next 6 months, and you get 10 quality wholesalers and 10 quality agents bringing you deals on a consistent basis, you'll be able to quit your job. Because a good agent and a good wholesaler, you have 10 of them, they're gonna come across a deal or two a month that they'll shop to you. Maybe more, but that's, you do the math, that's 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 deals a month sent your way. They're not all deals, some are priced too high, some won't work, some are not where you wanna buy, but the point is you're gonna start to get some volume in your funnel and have a consistent flow. We call it the gravy train here at the office. You can pay for marketing, but those are one-time buys. You get a good agent, you might buy 3 houses from them this year. You get a good wholesaler, you might buy 5 houses from them this year, and so on and so forth as you develop relationships. So those are the free and paid ways. Let's move on to step 2. And if you feel like you're getting any value out of this, hit that like button. It helps with the stupid freaking YouTube algorithm and everything, but it helps. All right, so step 2 is going to be find funding. The beautiful thing about real estate investing is you don't have to use your own money to buy it. There's more money than deals sitting on the sidelines. And if you're going to be keeping these as rentals, as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, how to get the ball rolling to buy rentals, there are 2 main types of funding buckets that you need to look for. There is a short-term funding bucket. This is going to give you the money to buy and repair that distressed property. And then you need the long-term funding. I feel like my writing's really good. You may think it's bad, but I like it's really good. This is where you're going to get the long-term funding from a bank to, again, pay back your short-term lender. We'll get into that later. But the point of this part of the video is let's talk about short-term funders and long-term funders. So short-term funders, again, are going to be the people that are going to give you money to purchase and rehab a distressed property. To skip ahead to where your mind may be going, you can't go directly to a bank or a long-term funder to buy distressed properties. I get this question all the time from people. Why don't you go straight to the bank to fund your distressed property and then keep the money in note with the bank? Banks won't lend money on distressed property, so you have to go another source for short-term funding. So the short-term funding bucket has a ton of different options, from your own money, your own cash. If you have the cash, great, you're gonna get it back. In my opinion, if you have 100 grand, you put it in a deal and give yourself back 105 grand 3 months later, that's not your own money. That's leveraging your own money to pay yourself. So kind of like banking on yourself type of strategy. So if you have a ton of cash, you can reuse it over and over in the methodology that I'm gonna give you. Most of you probably think if I have 100 grand, I'm gonna put 20, 30 grand down on 2 or 3 rentals and be out of money. No, you get it back if you use my method in step 3. So you have your own cash, but let's go over the more realistic other people's money, OPM. The first one I want to talk about is private lenders. Private lenders are normal, everyday people that lend you money to invest in real estate. They're people that you know. They're teachers, they're engineers, they're insurance agents, they're sales managers, they're architects, they're police officers, they're firefighters, they're normal middle-class people. Now pay attention to this. If you have a pen, make sure to write this down. This is the number one thing I want you to take from this entire video, is private lenders are people that you already know, that are already in your phone. You may not have the right pitch, the right presentation, or the right relationship to get money from them tomorrow. Don't get this twisted that you can just text 10 people in your phone and get $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. That's not how this works. However, the people that you know are private lenders, I promise you. All those occupations that I just mentioned are occupations of my private lenders. You're looking for a teacher, an engineer in their mid to late 50s. They want to retire in 5 to 10 years. They have an IRA that they've been contributing to for the past 20 or 30 years that they can self-direct and lend to you. They just may not know that or know how, but you have to teach them how to do it. They can self-direct their IRA, use it now because they can't touch it till they're 59 and a half or 60, or they get a huge penalty. So they can use their IRA now to lend to you. They can borrow against their 401k that they've been contributing to for the past 20 years. They can, if they've lived in a house because they're 50 and they've got kids and they haven't moved because of school and their kids are in high school and they've lived in the house since their kids were in elementary school, they've lived there for 15 years. They can pull out a home equity line of credit and lend it out to you. They bought their house for 300 grand 15 years ago. Now it is worth a minimum of 600 grand and they probably owe 100 grand. So if they have not done a refinance, they potentially have $500K in equity that they can tap into and pull some of that out and lend to you. They borrow from the home equity line of credit from their bank at 7%. They lend to you at 12%. They make the 5% spread, you do the deal, and you pay them back. So private lenders are just normal, everyday people that you need to start to have conversations with. If you're in my community and watching this, you know that we have scripts, presentations, and openers and everything to help make that possible. But private lenders are the great resource. They just might take you a few months to find. It took me 6 months to find my first one. The quicker option is going to be hard money lenders. Hard money lenders, unlike private lenders, they're companies. So they're going to do a background check, a credit check. They're going to check your income, all of these things, and they're going to underwrite the property for you. Now, none of that is bad. It's just part of the deal of working with hard money lenders. Private money lenders are relational, at least at first. They're not going to check your credit. They're not going to check your income. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to give you the money because they trust you. Hard money lenders may end up trusting you, but they need to get some, boxes checked before they end up actually giving you the money. So they're a little more stringent, but you can find these hard money lenders at your local meetups, your local Facebook groups. Again, just asking around. Shoot, we have one called FasterFreedom Capital. So if you're looking for hard money, just go to FasterFreedomCapital.com. Probably in the description of this video, maybe not, but FasterFreedomCapital.com. We're our own hard money lending company. We have the best rates in the country. You're right up there, top with anybody else, because I don't mark up the rate. We borrow the money and lend it out of what we borrow it at. So that is the short-term section of step 2, which is finding the money. Let's talk about the long-term. I think I wrote ST and now I'm writing long-term out is what it is. So there are 2 types of long-term funders, and the reason you need the long-term funders is the cash flow. Short-term funders, private money, hard money, your money, you don't want that out for more than 6 to 8 months. These are going to be 20, 25, 30-year mortgages that allow you to cash flow and own the property long-term. Okay, I'm going to tie this all together in the framework in step 3, I promise. But long-term funding, your long-term funder is going to be a local bank. I think I spelled that right. And then or a DSCR lender. So local banks are community banks. They're not Bank of America's. They're not Commerce Banks. They're local community banks. They have 5 or 10 branches. They're in every city, big or small. First State Bank of this, Community Bank of that, those kind of banks. A lot of them love lending to real estate investors. That's how they stay in business. They don't have this huge book of residential mortgages like Bank of America does or Wells Fargo. So they stay in business by doing loans to real estate investors and to the auto body shop and to the laundromat. So they're small business banks, and as a real estate investor, you're a small business owner. So they will gladly, most of them, lend you money to be able to own the property long term. And then DSCR lenders have become very popular over the past couple of years because they're better. They have better terms than small local banks. The rates are cheaper and the loans are longer. So local banks you can find by asking other investors who they use, asking for cash out refinance friendly banks, real estate investing friendly banks. DSCR lenders, look them up, Google them, or FasterFreedomCapital.com. We're a DSCR lender as well. So show notes on that one. All right, let's tie this all together now with step 3, which is the Faster Freedom framework. It is tying all 3 of these things together. What was step 1? Step 1 was finding a distressed property. What was step 2? Step 2 was finding a lender. Let's go with a private lender to make this presentation simple. And what do you utilize to tie all this together? You utilize the BRRRR method. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and systemize. I talk about this a lot because this is the method I've used to buy 165 single-family rentals, 6 apartment complexes, 3 self-storage facilities, a hotel, all utilizing the BRRRR method, which means using none of my own money, and it means using other people's money. Step 3, we tie it all together. We got to the distressed property, we got the funds, and we got the plan. Let's tie them all together. So let's say I go to a wholesaler and find a distressed property that I can buy for $185,000. It's distressed, it needs work. They got it for less, but I can buy it at $185,000. Looking at it, I know that it needs about $40,000 worth of repairs and holding costs and money costs, and it needs 40 grand, right? So in order to buy and repair this property, I borrow $225,000 from a private money lender. They write me a check for $225,000. I write a check. I'm generalizing, like obviously there's closing costs and things like that, but I write a check to the title company for $185 grand, the real estate lawyer for $185 grand. I close on the property. Then over the next 3 or 4 months, I write $40,000 worth of checks to people to repair the property and make it in good condition and ready to rent. The next step is to get the property rented. I still owe the private lender $225 plus interest. I'm not paying him back yet. I'm not paying her back yet. I am renting out the property to prove it to be a cash producing asset. Now you can rent out on a short-term basis, Airbnb, if the area and your desire calls for that. You can rent it out on a mid-term basis to traveling nurses or corporate leases, or you can do the traditional long-term rent, 12-month lease to Section 8 or market rent. You have a lot of options. That's kind of the flexibility of real estate in this BRRRR method, how I teach it. You don't have to just do a 12-month lease from a normal tenant. There's a ton of different options to allow you to cash flow and be flexible. So you bought it, you fixed it up, you got it rented. Now this is the refinance step. This is where you go, this is the short-term lender, here's the long-term lender. So we got short-term, long-term. Now we go to this national DSCR lender. Let's just use, or local bank. But say you go to FasterFreedom Capital and, we're able to give you a loan on the property. Let's say this property appraised. You bought it at a discount, added value, it appraised for $300 grand. Get an 80% loan on that, so that's a $240,000 loan. 80% of 300 grand, 240 grand. You take that 240 grand and you pay back your private lender their 225 plus 10K in interest. So the private lender's paid back, he or she is happy because they gave you a check for 225, they got a check back for 235 3 months later. They made double-digit return on their money and they're done and they're paid off and they're happy. Now you do owe the bank 240 grand, but depending on the bank or lenders, 20, 25, 30 years, you take rent and you pay them back every single month. And I have videos on here that talk about the cash flow and the max liable offer formula to use. But in general, if you run your numbers right, your rent should cover your mortgage and all your owning expenses plus positive cash flow. And boom, you just bought a rental property with 60 grand equity without using any of your own money. And the cool thing is, before we get to the scale section, is today the property is worth 300. You owe 240, you have 60 grand in equity in one rental property you bought using none of your own money. That's powerful. That's probably going to maybe double your net worth, who knows, maybe not, maybe get you out of debt because your net worth is worth 60K. The cool thing about it is in 15 years, which is not that long considering most people watching this are gonna work for somebody until they're 65, so they're gonna work for somebody else for 40 years, maybe longer. 15 years from now, without adding any money into it, the property is going to be worth 600 grand. Well, you may be putting money into it, but it's the rent. You're not using your own money. So the property is going to double in value. You look it up, real estate does, every 15 years. And the mortgage is going to be paid down. Let's say if you did a 25-year mortgage, it's going to be paid down to 120 grand, let's say. So you're going to have 480K of equity in one rental property you bought using none of your own money. You do it twice, you're basically a millionaire. This doesn't include tax savings, this doesn't include cash flow, this doesn't include any of those things. And you're providing a good, safe house to a great family. It's a very, very fulfilling job or career path. So again, you can do this as many times as you want. There's no limit to how many times you can have these types of loans and do this process. And then if you want to really, really do this at a high level, you need to systemize each step. Create systems, and this is where people really tend to join my community because we have the systems already in place to help them buy more leads, more funding, to help them rehab faster. We rehab for them or introduce them to a rehabber or teach them how to rehab. We figure out the best rental strategy for them, and then we give them connections and show them. So we systemize the steps with them and for them. So if you're interested in that, I believe probably pinned to the very top of the description is application to work and to see if you work well and can be a part of my community. Other than that, that's the process. You find the distressed property, you find the funding, and you utilize the proper systemology to make it all work. I don't even think systemology is a word. Maybe it is. Regardless, thank you for being here. Hit that like button if you learned anything. If you want more whiteboard content like this, comment questions. I promise you I will personally answer them. So like this, share this with a friend, make sure you're subscribed, and comment your questions. I will get to them. And check out this video over here to learn more about real estate. I'll see you on the next one.